Hey, this is Scott Photography Bonsai. In this video, I'm going to go over the EFM 55 to 200mm at 4.5 to 6.3 lens for the EFM system. It's one of the few native options in this system. The nice thing about this lens, it's relatively inexpensive. It does have image stabilization. Now it is a pretty slow lens, but it is compact, so you have to trade off some speed with the lens for the small size. I always like smaller lenses when I have that option. The lens can focus as close as 3.3 feet or 1 meter, and it does have rounded aperture blades, which is very appealing for backgrounds. If you have a point source of light, you'll get a rounded source of light instead of maybe like a hexagon or octagon or something like that. That's really my preferred look, is the nice rounded point source lights. When I first got this lens, I took it out to my local state park. You have a lot of different options with composition with a telephoto lens like this. Of course, you can go at 55 if you want, but I was using it a lot with the 200mm. Just a slight change in your position will give you a fully different photo. You can basically take little chunks, little pieces of a scene and really utilize that area. Settings wise for that outing, I was using mostly TV mode with 1/250th of a second. Now it's a little slow considering this is a crop camera, but you do have the image stabilization, and I wasn't photographing much in the way of moving subjects. What you can do with that setup is press the plus minus button on the D-pad to switch to exposure compensation. That way you can quickly adjust things without having to change your shutter speed much. That'll allow you to use the main dial to adjust the overall exposure instead of getting really deep into the settings. A little bit more convenient. With a telephoto lens like this, usually you want to be using the viewfinder. In my case, I have a pretty large nose, so sometimes my nose was touching the screen and changing my focus point. It got a little irritating at the state park, but I did manage to get around it most of the time. Of course, that's more related to the camera than the lens. Over the years, I have used a lot of basic telephoto kit lenses like this. Now this one seems to be higher quality from an image standpoint than some of those, definitely. That's a good thing for this, especially backgrounds are pretty smooth. I do like how those render. I did use this lens at that cosplay photo shoot. It was darker conditions most of the time, very windy. We were inside with the horse. It was a challenge for the M50 with its sensor that isn't super great with high ISO. The lens does focus pretty quickly. It's very silent. In decent lighting, no issues at all, but when you do go into darker conditions, indoor conditions, you will potentially have some challenges with focusing. When I was trying to get snow photos with one of the cosplayers, I was at the 200mm. With that, you have f6.3, so really challenging for the camera. In that case, I did a mixture of higher shutter speeds, which was the ideal thing in that situation, but I also did some lower shutter speeds, and the image stabilization worked out pretty well in that case. In one situation I had 1/60th of a second and it was still a sharp photo. Now it's good to have a mix of different options. In that case, the image stabilization does help out quite a bit. A few negatives is the lens. One is with build quality. It has a plastic mount. With a telephoto lens, I would really prefer having a metal mount. It also doesn't have any type of switch to lock down the zoom. Also, the long range of the lens is at f6.3 200mm. Now that is slower than a lot of EF lenses. The main positives of this lens is with the size. It's very compact. The autofocus motor is very quiet. It's pretty quick. I haven't had any issues with that. And also, backgrounds are smooth. I really like how those render out. Now you can definitely consider the EF lenses. You'll potentially get more range. A lot of those are 300mm and a faster aperture. But if you want compact and you want native for video especially, this is a decent option. So that was a quick look at the EFM 55 to 200mm lens. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider subscribing. Helps me out a lot. Likes and shares about a lot as well. Thanks again.